Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
For every veteran, there is a story about a calling to serve, to fight for the freedoms of the American people. And every story has a struggle, a sacrifice, and invisible wounds. Warrior Watts programs help veterans recover from PTSD and invisible wounds through exercise, nutrition, and connecting with other veteran leaders. It is estimated that 22 veterans die each day by suicide, and another 30 veterans die each day by substance abuse. These are preventable deaths. Warrior Watt is committed to fighting PTSD through fitness, nutrition, and community. Got the privilege and opportunity to support our heroes in their time of need. Will you join us and take action?
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation, the MisFitNation Show. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation Show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation Show, Thursday after dinner episode. Thanks again for joining us tonight. We'll start off tonight again by saying the names of the 4 officers who lost their lives in Charlotte on the 29th. Police Officer Joshua Iyer, Investigator Samuel Peloche, Investigator William Alden Elliott, and Deputy U.S. Marshal Thomas M. Weeks. You're in our thoughts and prayers. Your families are in our thoughts and prayers. Your brothers in blue are in our thoughts and prayers. Those of you still out there fighting, stay in the fight and keep protecting our cities. We need you out there, and we'll always support you here at the Misfit Nation. Tonight we have a great guest, an inspiration. She's a best-selling author, a powerhouse, mompreneur, and top female motivational speaker who's become known for inspiring high-level professionals and entrepreneurs to venture beyond the place where their beliefs stop them. All thanks to a plummeting boulder that changed her old normal into the destiny that she embraces today. So without further ado, let's welcome Meridith Alexander to the Misfit Nation Show. Welcome, Meridith.
Woohoo! Thank you so much for having me here. And hello to all of you who are braving. It's 8:00 here on the East Coast. So kudos to you for being here. We're going to make it worth your while.
Heck yeah. Awesome. Meridith, I gave basically a one paragraph story about you. If you don't mind, take us a little further back to as far back as you want to go and tell us how we got here today.
Sure. It's interesting because I think sometimes that when we think that the story began, it's actually about 10 chapters in from where the story really began. So for me, you would think that the story began on February 19th, 2016, when I was just in the middle of a busy season. I was about 55 years old, and I lived most of my life as a single mom. I'd faced it all. I'd had abusive relationships. I'd had financial terror. And I was thinking, okay, I did it. I got the last of my little chipmunks right out into the world. My youngest child, yes, she was in Colombia, South America. She'd already been to 5 out of the 7 continents. She graduated from Yale. She was on a fellowship, and she was the last one that was just out there doing epic things. And then, for so many of us, the phone rings. And I picked up that phone at about 3:15 in the afternoon. And just with the inhale, hearing from Skylar's friend, I just knew that things were about to change. And I got the news that Skylar had literally been crushed by a boulder, and the boulder had cracked open her skull, crushed her lungs, fractured her spine, fractured both scapula, snapped her right thigh, pulverized her left ankle. And so I was being told basically that these injuries are typically unsurvivable, and that I should fly down to Colombia braced to maybe have the opportunity to say one final goodbye.
Wow. That's a call no one wants to get, and then having to fly to a whole other place, whole other country, over the ocean to get there. That had to be heartbreaking enough. The thoughts going through your mind at that time.
So, Rich, that is part of the kind of amazing thing, actually. And this is, again, where sometimes we don't understand the gift. We're in the middle of the gift. So for me, and what I mean by that is, had that happened where we live, I would have flown into the car hysterical and zoomed to the hospital and really had no time to reflect on the things that I had no choice but to reflect upon at 30,000 feet, when it took me almost a full 24 hours to get to this tiny little hospital where she was. And that was the beauty of it, because what I had the chance to really ponder was what I was going to make this mean. And I realized that of all the really awful emotions that I was feeling, as you know, the worst was feeling powerless to help my child. By far, no comparison. And in that realization, I also realized that was not acceptable for me. I was not willing to walk into that hospital as the second victim of that boulder, right? And so this is where I say it's interesting that we don't appreciate where our story began. Thanks to the other boulders, not literal boulders, but figurative boulders that I had faced over and over and over again in my life, I had spent decades really trying to understand how it is that some people face these insurmountable challenges and don't get destroyed by them. In fact, they emerge as bigger, bolder versions of themselves. And it always came down to the inner game. So the big moment for me actually happened on that plane when I realized that for my child, I may not know if this kind of epic version of myself existed, but I sure as heck was going to find it. And I may not be able to control what was going on in the outer game, but I sure as hell was going to play a mean inner game. And I was going to play that unstoppably for my daughter.
It's definitely true. We're judged by how many times we get up, not how many times we get knocked down. And like you said, the boulders in life that made you stronger to that boulder at that time, to be there and have your inner strength to get through that is what we all need to do as we move forward in life. Not everything's not, if it doesn't kill you, it kind of makes you stronger is a big cliche saying. But my brother likes to say, "But did you die?" a lot to me when I do stuff. But did you die? This weekend he was saying it to me when I was up there visiting, and of course, no, I didn't die. I'm right here talking to you. So
Right.
yes, it does make you stronger. It makes you learn. If you don't learn from the things, and then you're going to keep making those mistakes again, or those things may happen again to you. And not in the case of a boulder coming down a mountain, but in other literal things, other life things, those things could happen. And I think
I love that, Rich. And one thing that that you just made me think of is, yes, did you die? But I almost found that more importantly was, yes, but did you come even more alive as a result of it? And that was the big differentiating factor for me. Was there's a Howard Thurman quote that I love that says, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and you go do that." Because what our world needs right now is people who have really come even more alive. And if there was one gift that crazy boulder gave me, it was the gift of realizing that sure, we really have zero control to a certain extent over how long we get to play on this amazing planet. But what I realize is that we have 1,000% control over how epically we live while we're playing here.
definitely, I like to use epic a lot, and it's a part of your website. Everything is epic.
Yep.
And living epically is the best way to do it. Live every day to the fullest. Don't let things drag. Don't let things bring you down. Find the good in everything that goes on every day. We say here at the Misfit Nation, stack victories every day.
Yes.
Every day, try to beat the day before. Do as much as you can today to beat the day before. Do good things. Learn from any things that go wrong, because every day something's gonna go wrong. It's inevitable, but don't let it get you down.
Well, and I love that. And to me, epic stands for committing to yourself, to waking up every single day, stepping out into your world, looking through the lens of empowerment, purpose, innovation, and collaboration, and assessing, is what I am about to do, is that empowering me? Is that aligning with my purpose? Is that harmonizing me, challenging me in a beautiful way to really innovate? And is it harmonizing me with the world around me? In other words, am I collaborating here with something or someone? And, I think that, what you said about just making every day, every moment count, just is so critical. And it's what we focus on, and that's a choice. And then what do we choose to make that focus mean? That really totally controls how we feel that we're experiencing our world, although it's not easy to do in all circumstances.
Exactly. Not everything is going to be, I guess, handed to you on a silver platter or the easy button. The easy button's not always there from Staples. You gotta put the work in, and sometimes you're gonna have to climb over a mountain to get something to work. And it takes effort on all parts. And that's where, like you talk about grit, epic, that all comes into effect at that point. And I think you've shown that just by how going down to be with Skylar in Colombia, you had that inner strength and that grit to get through that. But how long did it take you to realize that now you have a blessing to come out and be that motivational speaker and show people to live epically and live with that grit mindset?
That's a fantastic question, Rich, because at that time, I still as a human being, really still had low self-esteem, right? Because I'd been a single mom, and I just kept feeling like I couldn't quite get that superwoman cape to like sit in the right place, and I felt like I was just always chasing, and I wanted to be way up here, and I felt like I was always falling flat on my face. And one of the big feelings that I felt immediately when I got that call was inadequate. Right. And yet, as I sat on that plane and realized that all that I had to offer my daughter was my ability to play the inner game. And then it was like, was I going to really invest in what to some people is the myth that this inner game is like a law, and that, it's as easy to create a castle as it is a button, all that kind of stuff, right? And yet I felt like this stuff either works or it doesn't. So it was really on that plane when I decided that I was going to not only play that game, but I had to kind of step into the role of a leader for this global family that knew about Skylar. And so it was terrifying to it really was. It was terrifying to put myself out there. Especially, a lot of what I did initially was on Facebook, because there were people all around the world, but most of them were envisioning Skylar dying any moment. And what I knew about the inner game is much more than mindset. It's energy, it's the inner frequency even that you're giving out. It's a lot of different layers. And so I knew that I had to get not only myself, but the people who were following our story to believe that this was done. Sky was going to be fine, whatever the new fine would be. And so when I came out there, I wasn't your typical mom showing pictures of Skylar in the hospital saying, pray for my daughter. I was there saying, no, if you want to cheer us on, you go out there and you be that epic version of yourself. You do live your dreams. You talk to people in the elevators. You find your inner sky. And oh, by the way, that sky should have no limits.
Very good. Very good. And how long were you actually in Colombia before you were able to come back to the States?
Ironically enough, we saw things that were technically, quote unquote, impossible begin to happen immediately. So within 3 days, we were able to get her airlifted at sea level to Miami. But then Miami, that's where most of the heavy duty procedures took place. And so we were there for a good solid 4 months. In fact, it was, on May 10th, it will be the 8th anniversary of her finally being released from the hospital after having been in Jackson Memorial in Miami for months and months and months. That became our family, our home away from home.
I bet, and learning every nurse and probably aide, doctor knew you by name, by face, knew both of you, probably because you were there every day, obviously, and she had to be there. So they kind of became, like you said, your family. Yeah. They knew what you liked from the cafeteria and what you didn't, so that was good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was an amazing time, an amazing group, actually. Yeah.
From that experience, did you gain more momentum, more confidence being at that hospital, since you were around people that were starting to give you that love circle right there because they were giving you that care, and then maybe branching?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is that by that point, it was just this huge, like, unbelievable momentum that had been, it was like this fire erupted in me, and it was almost as if it started to look as if life had to conform to that vision. So actually what the doctors started calling us the miracle family, both because what was happening physically that kept dragging me into the nurse's station and showing me things that I had zero idea what they were showing me, right? I mean, they're showing me, they're like pointing to like a CAT scan and going, you see that area? And I'm kind of going, what am I looking at? And they're telling me that what I'm seeing is typically indicates that the patient either hasn't made it or they're vegetative, and clearly Sky was neither one of those, right? And so and they also called us the miracle family because of the inner game. In fact, they invited us back a couple of years later to be their keynote speaker on inner game, because it just kept building. And the more I would hear stories from people who had read my posts, and the more that it was impacting their lives, the more that I realized that in the midst of all this tragedy was a profound gift, and that I was being given the opportunity, which ultimately I believe Skylar would have as well someday, to really kind of pay it forward by being the embodiment of who we have the potential to be when we're willing to step forward and believe in quote unquote the impossible, but really tap into that quote unquote epic version of ourselves.
Definitely. And I think you're doing great. I'm sure Sky's doing great. I've seen some videos of both of you together, and I think as a team, the family unit, you're doing awesome together. And it's motivational just to see you as a mom come out there and then have Skylar with you, and you showing that you're not afraid to be out in public with her, even though she may get sick or whatever out there, but see people maybe staring at her. You're out there and you're showing the world that you two are living what you're saying on what you founded here. So that's awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And it's been an amazing journey for her, and it has been an amazing journey, for me as well. And I think it really, it's interesting because, Rich, when she was at Yale, she was the inspiration. She was smiling, she's founding all these organizations, she'd been to 5 out of the 7 continents, she's doing all these outrageous things, and yet people took a look at her and went, my gosh, if I was a cute 22-year-old girl going to Yale, I'd think the world is a pretty happy, cheery place too. And so then the boulder falls, and Sky wakes up, and now she's all scarred. She's having to learn things all over again. This huge future that everyone had envisioned for her has been, let's say, postponed, really pushed back until who knows when. And yet she's still freaking smiling, and she's still laughing, and she's still saying, well, the other option is, to be depressed, and that wouldn't be, and I mean, so people look at her, and to me, it's just the embodiment of really what we all have the opportunity to choose. Not all disabilities are visual like Skylar's. And I think, what this really taught me more than anything else is that the opportunity for everything, whether it's our careers, whether it's things we want in our personal lives, it absolutely always begins in our inner game. And what does that mean? That means learning to master 3 things, which only we can do. That is our focus. That is our language, meaning the words that we use in our narrative or with each other, and with our imagination. We are obsessed with using our freaking imagination to fear, to worry, and to self-doubt. Our imagination has the capability of helping us to believe things are possible that we have no reason to believe are possible. And yet, when we invest in them and start to think the thoughts that help us go, well, maybe I don't know. And then finally, yeah, I can see how that's possible. And then, yeah, I can see how that's probable. And heck, it's inevitable. It's just a matter when we're the only ones who can do that. And most of us just allow our thoughts to think us, whereas we'll spend all day password protecting our computers and virus protecting our computers, but we feel zero obligation to quarantine some of the things we should be quarantining on the most valuable resource we have, and that is our minds.
Definitely. And when you said the imagination leads to fear, that plus watching whatever news you watch, or like you said, social media, whatever one you listen to can fuel that imagination into making you so scared you won't leave the house. And there's people that this happened to from 2020 till now. They won't
Right.
leave or be in public because the talking heads told them they will die or something before they
Right.
walk outside and talk to someone. And I think that's something we need to reach back in, grab them, not do shake and baby, but get them outside and maybe let them see that they're going to be all right.
For sure, for sure. And I think you allude to something that I think is really, really, really important. One of the reasons why I think I was able to kind of expand on that momentum and expand on the strength was because I didn't isolate myself. I put it out there and allowed my mind to see what I used to call the global family. I still call them. Like whenever I post on our Sky is the Limit page on Facebook with an update, I always say, dear glorious global family, because that really is, I mean, sometimes we're kind of a quirky family, but I think ultimately we are on this crazy little planet by ourselves. And so, I mean, it's really up to us to figure out what kind of experience. To me, I believe that we have one goal and one goal only, and that is to be taking our last breath saying, oh my gosh, that is freaking epic. I hope I have the chance to do this again. And everything else is an objective, a possibility, a potential finish line. But the whole quest is to figure out that crazy question, how to choose to live.
Exactly. And in this time, you've now written 2 books in that 8 years you said, right? So 8 years, and that
Yes.
you wrote 2 books, 100 Sky is the Limit book, and then 100 Days of Epic. Sky's Limit was a bestseller 2017-ish, right?
Yes.
And then
And
100 Days that came out.
And the Sky is the Limit actually captures the actual unedited posts that were written those 4 months in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
So it's really cool because you see the inner game, not just hear, oh, I was playing an inner game. You see it in real time. You see the words that I wrote when Skylar was in that 14-hour process to put Humpty Dumpty together again. The surgeons in Miami said that it was one of the, if not the most complicated procedure they'd ever done. It was one of the top 3, and they were shocked that she survived it. And then 100 Days of Epic really dives more into the actual putting together the formula, because the backstory is that when insurance decided that Skylar was well enough to come home, she could barely swallow. She could not be left alone. If you left her sitting, she would tumble, because the damage ended up not being to her spinal cord, but to her balance in her brain. So over time, that has gotten a lot better, but it basically destroyed the business that I had then. I made the shocking discovery that you can't make cold calls from an ICU room. Imagine that.
Rough.
It's a little challenging. And so there I was with this child who couldn't barely talk, could not lift up her arms, could not be left alone, with no idea how I was going to pay the bills. And so I remember the moment really, as I had put her into bed and I was sitting in my office looking at all these bills and feeling overwhelmed by terror again, and like, oh my gosh, how am I going to navigate this? But again, the option of giving up or failure just was like, no, it was unacceptable. And I realized, kind of had a conversation with myself, Meridith, this freaking inner game. I mean, your daughter survived something unsurvivable. Can you not figure out what are the elements? What kind of stack the odds in your favor there? Can this apply to our lives professionally? And that's when I began really playing with it, putting it together. And that's when things unfolded into this formula, which now really hones in on my conviction that if we will realize that our minds crave guidance, and if we do not guide it ourselves, in other words, if we do not commit to becoming the sovereign of our mind goes looking for guidance elsewhere. And so what does becoming sovereign of our minds mean? It means learning to master those three elements, the focus, the language, and the imagination. And so that's really 100 days spelled out and gamified in a way that every single day, you don't have to do it consecutively, but if you will invest 100 days in focusing first on your focus and doing things to hone that, and each little day has some exercises, and then you'll hone in on your language, and finally your ability to envision your version of yourself will start shifting. And I've coached hundreds of clients, spoken on stages, and the biggest pushback I get is, but oh my gosh, it is so hard to change. And my response to that is, I love you, but waking up in the morning, knowing that things are not going to change, knowing that you can't stand what is going on in your life, knowing that you are living with your own worst enemy, that's hard. Making little shifts, exerting the discipline to make a slightly different choice, to become aware, that's simply a positive challenge. That's nowhere near as hard as waking up in your 70s, really realizing that you've never truly lived.
Exactly. You don't want to wake up in your 70s realizing that you basically were just, I guess, moving through life, not living life. And it's hard to even look at young people now that can't look up. They look down all day at their phone, or they can sit at a dinner table at a restaurant and they never look at each other.
Right.
They're texting to each other, sitting across from each other, which is the most ridiculous thing in the world. But that's what they do. And we need to somehow break that, maybe jam the cell phones while they're in restaurants so they have to speak. And then we'll see how far off we are in the world, and what we need to fix to get back to being social and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, again, to me, that all the problems that are in what I call the outer game, they always track back to things that, opportunities that we haven't explored in the inner game. Things, again, it's our greatest resource. We can't delegate it. We can't eliminate it. We can't automate it. And it's up to us, and it starts with us, right? So we can't, the saying goes, you can't lead a horse to water, but you sure can make it thirsty,
It's true. It's a true statement.
Yes.
Meridith, tell us about the Grit Mindset Academy. I'm looking at your website right here. It's on my giant screen.
Yes. So the Grit Mindset Academy is really my home base for helping typically professionals and entrepreneurs come to me and they're spinning their wheels, they're feeling stuck, they know that they're getting in their way, and they are really, again, they're terrified that they are going to look back at some point and say, I'm not at all where I thought I would be, or worse, I'm exactly where I thought I would be, but I don't feel what I thought I would be feeling by now. So my specialty is, one, helping them identify not only where they are, but who they are. And therefore, where is that blind spot thinking that has been, keeping you on the hamster wheel? And when we can identify that, then we can help you learn how to get out of your own way and really kind of course correct, to reboot, to recalibrate, and to also kind of teach you some of the things about our inner game and how to get it working in your favor, so that you can finally evict that own worst enemy and really start showing up, not overwhelmed by the kryptonite, but really feeling your superpowers. And the moment we can get there, then people start seeing potential within themselves way beyond. I even posted today, there was a client of mine who secured a position that just a few months ago she could not have envisioned for herself. I mean, she was so stuck in who she wasn't that she couldn't see who she had the potential to be. And so she sent me this wonderful testimonial today. And it was just, my thought is, as a coach, I don't want to just help you achieve where you think you should be. I want to help you achieve things that you have no idea right now that you are capable of achieving. Then I feel like I've accomplished my mission. And so that is what Grit Mindset Academy is all about. It's about helping you realize that you take yourself with you wherever you go. So whatever that big dream is, and especially if you feel like, I keep getting the same disappointing results, I've tried everything. Well, you've tried the same sort of everything, but you've never cleaned out what really is in your way. And the truth is, we can't see it ourselves. So, as you probably can tell, this is something that has become my absolute passion, because the inner game was so obviously there in my own case, and I didn't see it until this freaking boulder hit our lives. And I would love to ensure that anyone who's listening to this does not have to be crushed by a boulder in order to learn this stuff.
Definitely. We don't need to have the literal boulder hit you or someone in your family to wake up and see what you have fighting inside of you, to say, hey, I am somebody, I can do this. And like, you had your inner strength, you were just, like you said, you were kind of fearful, didn't have the self-confidence at the time.
Oh, yeah.
But now you have it, and you have the energy, you have the momentum, you have something going on that will help others. And that's what it's all about.
And it's amazing too, to your point, Rich, when people first started asking me, even to coach, but definitely to speak on stages, I was kind of like, oh, no. You do not know who you're talking to. I am capable of getting up on stage and messing up the introduction for your speaker. You do not want me on your stage for even 5 minutes. I will embarrass the heck out of you. But what I really had to get beyond was thinking that, when we put our stories out there, that it's all about, like in my case, it's all about me. What I started to realize is I started to relax and hear the stories coming back to me of people who had been impacted. At first it was, by those posts, and people telling me these like miraculous things that were happening in their lives. And I remember the first time, and it was actually a time when I was appearing with Skylar on stage. And so I was wheeling her out, and that thorny little voice inside of my head that normally said, oh my God, this is going to be terrifying, you're not prepared, wah! That freaked out, just out of nowhere said, oh my gosh, I love this. And I kind of went, what? What did you say? Where did you come from? And I realized that it wasn't being up on stage that I loved. It wasn't possibly being even glared at by the quote unquote haters. It was knowing that someone, even if there's one person out there sitting in one of those seats, someone will hear exactly what they need to hear that day. And it just might frickin' change their life. And that is such a gift to be part of that creation, that transformation, that I will do this until I am absolutely taking my last breath if I can.
Definitely. And something we say here in Misfit Nation, both on the main show and the Tuesday Crew show, if we reach one, we teach one. On every episode, if we just reach one person, it's a success. It doesn't matter if there's a million people that download this. If one of those people gets something out of it and become a better person and find a way to find their path to success,
Yes.
then we have done a great job. Same thing with me and you talking tonight. If one person on any of our social medias, YouTube, and then when this goes on audio, if we resonate with somebody and they take that turn and stop getting in their own way and maybe come forward, me and you just did our job.
Absolutely. And, I think that what you just said really speaks to what I hear a lot. I have a lot of, when people are first talking to me before they decide whether they're going to make the plunge and actually work with me in my coaching or hire me to go on stage, a lot of times they refer to missing the boat, right? I'm afraid I've missed the boat, or I'm afraid I'm going to miss the boat. And one of the things I believe so deeply is that you cannot miss the boat because you are the boat, but you do have to learn to captain it. And how gently you make it through the storms on the ocean totally reflects how much focus and attention you've placed on learning how to captain that boat. And the boat is that inner game. And we often see ourselves so harshly that we have a tough time entertaining that epic version of ourselves, that captain, is really in there.
Definitely is. And it's, on your page, it asks the question, is it ever too late to start making changes? It's never. You should always start learning. You should be learning something new every day. And those little changes can help you throughout your life and keep you from being stagnant in the water. So like you said, you are the captain of your own boat. If you're the captain of your boat, you can sail that one. If you're riding someone else's boat, then you got a problem.
So agree. And, for those listening out there, I mean, I don't feel like I really started knowing who I was until I was in my mid 50s. And I certainly didn't find that, the man that I finally was ready to love until I was in my 60s. So, I mean, you just don't be so sure that your life is doomed to the abyss, right? I mean, and even the abyss has its value. I'm a strong believer, and it's much more fun to spend time with the mentors, but the anti-mentors are the ones who sometimes can make the most profound, even positive impact on your life, because they force you to see things very clearly, know exactly what you don't want, and they force you to let go of things that sometimes have been you've been using them to play small, or questions that you've been afraid to ask. And it is time to ask. So it's a crazy, dance floor with two very important partners.
Exactly. 100%. Meredith, we've hit a lot of topics tonight in a very quick 43 minutes right now. So what's the best way for the audience to get in contact with you that you, I guess, look at every day, I guess?
I look at all the social media every day. So if you really want to get in touch with me, find me. Just notice that Meridith is spelled with 2 I's. Think of a human being, 2 I's, because if you go looking for E's, you won't find me. But if you actually really want to have a conversation, and that today is the day that you are ready to emancipate yourself from your own hamster wheel, then definitely go to the Grit Mindset Academy. website, or sneak over to one of the bit.ly links where you can actually talk to me. And that's bit.ly/go epic now. There's no charge for that brainstorming 20 minutes. But bit.ly/go epic now, all capitalize each word. And, or message me, because as you probably can tell, my passion is really helping people discover potential that sometimes are positive doesn't exist. So that's my way of paying back. And I would love nothing more than for you to turn around and reach out to me.
Awesome. And you gave us 3 things that people should do every day: focus, imagination. What's the third one?
Language.
There.
And the big hot part of that with language, I'll give you 2 things if you're listening to this. One, if you can step out tomorrow, committing to get rid of the word but as often as possible and replace it with the word so, things will start to shift. And then secondly, if you will look at your present tense statements, our present tense statements, we only make those statements when we believe they are fact. So it acts as programming code for your inner game. So if you say my biggest challenge is over and over and over again, guess what? Programming code, you're making part of your reality. So 2 big language tips there as kind of a bonus.
Outstanding. Meridith, it's been great chatting with you. Anytime you want to come back on and grace us with more motivation like this tonight, this was awesome. Or if you want to jump on with our Tuesday crew and pump them 2 up, they'd love it. They'd have a great time. Just let us know. We'll get you back on.
Just let me know. I've enjoyed it, and I really love supporting our military and our first responders and all of your audience out there. Look at this. So make sure that if you don't follow this on a regular basis, like if you're part of like my peeps, my tramily, my tribe family, look at this program. You want to subscribe. So, and of course, I'd be honored to come back.
Awesome. Thank you. And have a good night.
Thank you so much. Booyah, everybody.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the MisFitNation Show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation.